Germany is situated in the middle of Europe, a land of diverse culture and tradition, from Bavarian homeliness in the south and medieval splendour within its centre to its flourishing lifestyle in the east and large commercial cities in the north. A country which extends from the Alps to the North Sea. Our journey begins in the south, on Lake Constance. The harbour entrance is flanked by a lighthouse and the Bavarian lion. The historic buildings of the old town have mostly been preserved, and the facades of those of the patricians of the old town shine out in colourful splendour. The Catholic Münster Church is one of several churches of various denominations, a place of religious tolerance. The tall nave of the church is richly decorated with white stucco, coloured frescoes and carvings in Rococo style. The Pearl of Lake Constance has attracted since Roman times. The flower island of Mainau is popular, a paradise of plants on Lake Constance that was designed by Grand Duke Friedrich I in 1853. Although the island only has a perimeter of 3 kilometers, there's still much to explore. The second largest butterfly house in Germany, a natural habitat for bees, splendid examples of viniculture, and a fine arboretum. Today, the Bernadotte family, descendants of Friedrich I, reside in this, a castle of the Teutonic Order. Next to the Palm House is the Italian Rose Garden, and numerous modern sculptures and fountains surround the Baroque palace complex. Further north, Ulm was settled in 854 AD. The Ulmer Münster is a masterpiece of European Gothic, the church tower being the highest in the world, financed by the local citizens. The town hall, with extensive wall paintings and an astronomical clock, highlights one of the once wealthiest cities in Europe. Located on the Danube, Ulm's sturdy walls and towers offered good protection and was visited by emperors and kings. Craft guilds became powerful, ruled and subsequently failed, and the plague was merciless. Consequently, this once imperial city returned to being a small town. Regensburg is also situated along the Danube, Germany's medieval wonder, capital of Bavaria's Upper Palatinate, and also often described as Italy's most northerly city. The mighty dome of St. Peter marks the centre of the old town. The impressive episcopal church stands on the site of a Roman building. Following the example of French Gothic cathedrals, construction began in 1250 with a succession of master builders. Even though it is its medieval townscape that predominates, Regensburg has a long history. More than 2,000 years ago, the Celts settled here. Following the extinction of the Carolingians, Regensburg remained the residence of both emperors and kings, as well as wealthy merchants who became increasingly influential. Set in southern Germany, both culturally and economically, Regensburg grew quickly, a gem of the Middle Ages. Valhalla, a unique temple on the Danube. King Ludwig I of Bavaria had this classic mortuary built as a temple in order to commemorate the so-called German giants of intellect within the central slopes of the Danube Valley, close to Regensburg. Downstream, 3 rivers meet. The episcopal city of Passau nestles between the hills at the confluence of the Danube, Inn and Ilz. High above the rivers and strategically perched on a rock is the castle complex of Veste Oberhaus, imposing and impregnable. The salt trade enriched the town, and Italian Baroque masters were allowed to create the cityscape of the historic Old Town. For many years, it was the largest diocese of the Holy Roman Empire. Situated within its center was the richly decorated castle of the Prince Bishops. And adjacent, the cathedral. Fires and floods caused its reconstruction. The magnificent and impressive town hall attracts many visitors. Passau, the floating city. Near Kelheim, the Danube cuts through a wild and romantic rocky landscape. Isolated and difficult to access, this is the location of the Benedictine Abbey of Weltenberg. Gold and marble gleam in the twilight, and all around, angels and saints depict religious scenes. The center of its inner dome appears to open up to the sky and shows the gathering of all the saints in front of God's throne of clouds. Choir stalls of walnut are adorned with guardian angels and various inlays. A sacred area. There's also a small pilgrimage church and a monastic brewery. At Königssee is the municipality of Berchtesgaden. South of the Danube are the Alps, the highest mountain range in Europe. They're lakes with ice-cold water even in the summer months. Below the Watzmann, the Königssee is one of the most visited lakes in Germany. It features a world-famous echo that everyone wants to experience. A satisfying conclusion to our boat trip. Only by water can the world-famous St. Bartholomew Church, symbol of the Königssee, be reached. Schönau prizes its valuable heritage and boasts a number of historic boat huts. Beginning in Würzburg on the Main, the Romantic Road leads to various well-known historic cities, castles and palaces. Between 1642 and the middle of the 18th century, 3 prince bishops gave the city its Baroque architecture. And also the castle known as the Residence. Tauber Bischofsheim is one of the oldest cities in the popular Tauber Valley. The city church, the Kurmeinsische Amtsschloss, the Turmestar, and the old town with the neo-Gothic town hall and picturesque half-timbered houses keep the past well and truly alive. In Rothenburg ob der Tauber, or German Jerusalem, Germany's Middle Ages have been well preserved and each year attract millions of visitors. The main St. Jakob Church contains a high level of German Gothic art and some celebrated altars. The view from the City Hall's tower across the half-timbered buildings and city gate is quite breathtaking. A fairy tale-like city that is one of the most popular tourist destinations in Germany. Since the 12th century, Dinkelspoel has been owned by the Staufer. Friedrich Barbarossa gave it the status of a town and presented it to his son Conrad as a dowry for his bride, Berenguera of Castile. Originally, there was a Frankish royal court here. A settlement developed which later became a fortified town. This is around midway on the Romantic Road. Harburg is one of the best preserved castles in Germany, with 6 towers and a door system that leads to an inner courtyard, around which there is the Hunger Tower, parapet walks, Burgfried and the Prince's Building. This medieval town is located on steep slopes. Donauwörth is our next destination. In 877 AD, a bridge was built across the Danube, and an intersection of European trade routes was created here. In 1467, the city received the Great Liberty Letter of Emperor Friedrich III. Market rights and a mint ensured economic progress and the prosperity of its citizens. With the once rich city of the Fugger begins the last third section of the Romantic Road. Augsburg was founded in 45 AD as a Roman military camp. Due to the trading houses of Fugger and Welse, the city attained great commercial success. Detached from religious power. Located in green fields is the Wies Church. A church within a meadow, a natural idyll, Bavarian Rococo in harmony with nature. Developed from a small field chapel and the miracle of tears. Fussen is a fascinating town. Since 1313, both the monastery and town were under the control of the bishops of Augsburg, and since the Middle Ages, Fussen was also an important trading centre. With the Hoher Schloss that towers majestically above the old town. Both church and commerce brought it much distinction. Bavarian King Ludwig II made Füssen into a magical place, with Neuschwanstein Castle the realization of his amazing world of fantasy. This fairy tale castle was in every way the idyll of ancient Roman knighthood. Due to the operas of composer Richard Wagner, Ludwig discovered the delights of the Middle Ages. Telephones, decorated stone pillars, and everywhere motifs of famous Wagner operas. Between working and living room, an artificial stalactite cave with a small waterfall and white swan. Connected to a living room whose entire picture gallery is devoted to the figure of Swan Knight Lohengrin. Theatre artists created this dream world for King Ludwig from where he could no longer escape. Precious figures wherever he looked. And in the dining room, Siegfried fighting the dragon. In his bedchamber, the lonely king also showed his special love of pageantry. The throne hall is a most magnificent room, with lateral rows of columns and a gilded apse which is reminiscent of the Hagia Sophia in Istanbul, and a precious candelabra in the form of a Byzantine crown. The monumental Singer Hall was built for the operas of Richard Wagner, and everywhere are motifs of Parzival, Lohengrin, and King Arthur and his Round Table. This is the end of the romantic road. Nuremberg, secret capital of German Franconia and treasure trove of the German Reich. The epitome of German romanticism and tradition, with a long history and also bitter memories of quite recent times. An imperial city which indeed became the City of Party Rallies, but which has never lost its benevolent spirit. The twin-towered St. Lawrence Church is the city's largest and artistically most important religious building. Gothic splendour within. The Pegnitz River divides the two sections of the old town with several bridges and footbridges. The historic area of Siebald has always been the domain of the city's long-established middle classes. The 19-metre-high beautiful fountain is set in a corner of the main square and is decorated with many biblical and courtly stone figures. The Church of Our Lady at the other end of the square is one of the city's landmarks. In the choir room of the Hall Church is the radiant Tucher altar. The Middle Ages dominates the old town, with Town Hall and Fembo House, a large and completely preserved middle-class townhouse. Built by a wealthy silk merchant, and then subsequently owned by patrician families Beheim and later Fembo. Seebalder Court provides an impressive panoramic view of the Nuremberg architecture of old, and the mighty Schürstab House, including a rectory and its chapel. Named after the Holy Siebald, the Siebaldus Church ranks as the most important church in Nuremberg, first mentioned in 1072. Its interior was furnished with valuable works of art, epitaphs, and votive images of the city's wealthy merchant families. In 1971, the Toy Museum was inaugurated, It features toys from around the world, both ancient and modern. At the foot of Castle Hill is the small Tiergartner Court, in front of an eponymous tower and city gate, framed by half-timbered buildings. There's a Dürer hare within sight of the Albrecht Dürer house that the world-famous artist inhabited until his death. It's likely that many of his most famous paintings were created here. Today, this place of worship is also the city's main Dürer museum. Particularly interesting are the workshops upstairs in which the great man worked, and from where he looked up to the castle. Its mighty walls and Sinwell Tower, and felt protected by both his city and Emperor Maximilian I. Until that time, the Holy Roman Empire had no capital city, and its rulers wandered from place to place with their entourage to hold both imperial and courtly days. The importance of Nuremberg could be highlighted by the fact that each ruler of Germany resided in its castle until 1571. Most of the castle buildings have been rebuilt, including the Night Room. A magnificently framed gate leads to the castle chapel, at which 2 levels indicate medieval times. Above, the Emperor Hall. In the late Middle Ages, there was a distinctive garden culture just outside the city gates. Nuremberg's aristocracy had farmland transformed into ornamental gardens. The Johannes Cemetery is one of the most artistically and culturally important cemeteries in Europe. A visit to the Transport Museum is a must. Between Nuremberg and Fürth, the first 6 kilometers of railway history were laid. The Tiergarten had been situated at Dutzenteich since 1905, but gave way to the construction of the Nuremberg Rally Building in 1933. Today it contains the Documentation Center. A fine project. Here, a gigantic rotunda, and west of the old town, the Justice Palace. The Nürnberger processes took place here. Fürth is a splendid place, and not far away, Nuremberg's little sister. Here too, Charlemagne founded one of many royal courts. The oldest building is the Michael's Church, with fortifications and a longhouse, parts of which are almost 1,000 years old. The city park is a wonderful leisure space with flower gardens and promenade arcades. The city theatre and peaceful residential streets were in stark contrast to the world of technology which was rife in those days. Dresden, capital of the German Free State of Saxony, a major centre of culture with a remarkable history. Although almost completely destroyed at the end of the Second World War, and for many years hidden behind the Iron Curtain, today the city shines out in all of its former splendour. The Wettener dynasty developed the old town during 800 years of power, and Friedrich August I, known as the Strong, became its most prominent figure. He also had the Zwinger built, a meeting place for noblemen, which was protected on the outside by a moat and could be reached by a bridge through the Kronendor der Vergoldeten Haube. A demonstration of splendour and power in stone, the buildings contained a library, art gallery and armoury. With its charming fountains and magnificent backdrop, the courtyard is ideal for a leisurely stroll and as one of Dresden's main landmarks. In 1709, between the inner and outer walls, construction began on a tournament arena in front of the castle, thus the name Zwinger. In the 19th century, Gottfried Semper built the Semper Opera no less than twice, as the first building was destroyed by fire. Dedicated to music, this magnificent building is one of the most glamorous opera houses in the world. The Royal Catholic Chapel in Palace Square is considered to be the last great work of Roman Baroque. August the Strong had to convert to Catholicism in order to gain the Polish crown. The residence of the Saxon electors is regarded to be a palace of treasures. Over the centuries, many well-known architects transformed the fortress into an exquisite castle. The buildings with reconstructed Renaissance facades are located around 3 courtyards and are overlooked by Haussmann's Tower, one of the oldest sections of the site. From Palace Square, it can clearly be seen how the late medieval castle was transformed into a 4-winged building with towers in each corner of the courtyard. On the 17th of February 1945, British bombers decimated Dresden, leaving only the spirit of a once beautiful, prosperous and culturally important city. The castle was destroyed, but was eventually rebuilt according to its original design and can now be seen in all of its former glory. A centre of art and science. Close by, the stable courtyard is the world's oldest original tournament arena of its kind. The Tuscan-arched arcades originated in the Renaissance period and were used by spectators during various tournaments and entertainments. The Procession of Princes is a work of art that features 35 Saxon dukes, princes and kings on 24,000 painted porcelain tiles. The Church of Our Lady was the most important church construction of Protestantism and indicates the centre of the old town, powerful, dignified and sublime. The largest stone dome north of the Alps, the Petersdom of Protestant faith, and a monument that commemorates its founder, Martin Luther. A Protestant preaching church completely dedicated to the pulpit, the place of the proclamation of the Word of God, and with a magnificent pipe organ. Today, concerts, church services and tours take place in this revered, sacred building. The Church of Our Lady became a symbol of reconciliation. Bruhl's terrace was raised above the casements on the former site of the Belvedere, along with its flower beds, sculptures and dolphin fountain. Below is Dresden Fortress. Sturdy walls protect this fortified structure on the banks of the Elbe, where at the end of the 15th century, up to 700 workers laboured long hours on its construction. In the vaults, battlements and gun placements, it is cold and damp. This is the other side of the city. Militaristic, defensive. Count Bruhl, a follower of Friedrich August II, was presented with the Elbe Wall as a gift and had a mile-long walkway built for the nobility. The balcony of Europe, 10 meters above the banks of the river Elbe. Dresden is a harmony of both architecture and landscape, a brilliant work of art. Nearby is Meissen, the cradle of Saxony, a medieval city with a long history. Here in 929 AD, during his campaign against the Slavs, Heinrich I founded Misty Castle, in the surroundings of which Meissen gradually developed. In around 1200 AD, the rapidly growing settlement became a borough or town and had a square with a church and a town hall at its centre. Finally, the Margraviate of Meissen fell to the Wettner, who ruled here until 1485 and reigned over Saxony until 1918. Meissen is well known for the porcelain of the same name. In the Meissen factory, each aspect of the manufacturing process can be observed, along with the presentation of the history of the famous white gold. Johann Friedrich Böttger discovered the raw material and produced it in Meissen. Meissen's porcelain, with its distinctive symbol of crossed knives, is world famous. The route from the town to Castle Hill is like a glimpse into the past. A view across the city's rooftops, and next a courtyard, framed by the castle, cathedral, and numerous manor houses. Today, Albrecht's fortress is a museum, a striking castle that Duke Albrecht enlarged according to late Gothic design in the mid-15th century. The Prince's Room and Hall of Arms are totally authentic. It was the first German castle to be built according to French design. Close by, the cathedral, whose two new towers do not possess the early Gothic design of the main building. But its 100-meter-long main aisle is an impressive sight, with adjoining capella. In around 1000 AD, a castle was built on the knoll at the east bank of the Rhine. The second largest fortress in Europe is situated above Koblenz. In a strategic position on the German Eck, the Mosel River flows in the upper middle Rhine Valley. Boppard grew from a Roman garrison. Following the invasion of the Alemanni, a city wall was built to protect what was a toll castle. A journey on the Rhine, past the Lorelei Rock, where once a seductive mermaid lured boatmen to dangerous rapids and their subsequent doom. Next, Oberwesel, a city of towers and wine. A well-protected and prosperous town with its red Liebfrauen church. The most powerful river in Western Europe is not only of historic interest, but also the busiest waterway in the world. Bacharach nestles protected by a fortress and walls in the wide-open Rhine Valley. In the Middle Ages, the city was the residence of one of 7 electors. Count Palatine of Rhine had the important function of imperial vicar. Since 2002, this cultural landscape of castles and ancient cities has been designated as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. In the Bingen of Roman times, a fortress controlled all the traffic on both land and water, later the responsibility of Klopp Castle. A final crossing of the Rhine, and we arrive at our destination. Rudesheim, a wonderful medieval wine-growing town on the Rhine. Berlin, the new old capital city. A fascinating European metropolis with a dramatic history in which contemporary architecture merges with the imposing character of a centuries-old city. A melting pot of both history and culture. One of the most exciting cities in the world. A myth reborn. On one side of Alex is a striking neo-Renaissance building known as Red City Hall due to its brick walls. The Nikolai Quarter was built by the DDR government as a kind of Old Town, a European Disneyland to mark the city's 750th anniversary. On the banks of the Spree, Emperor Wilhelm II had Berlin Cathedral built. It represented the main church of Berlin's Prussian Protestantism. Nearby, in the suburb of Spandau, are the Hackerschenhofe, several tangled backyards that were built in the 19th century and contained both residential and commercial buildings. Berlin Central Station, the biggest rail interchange station in Europe, is situated between the Spree and Humboldt Harbour in the Moabit district of Berlin-Mitte. The state-of-the-art station was inaugurated in 2006. The Spree is Berlin's lifeline, a slow-flowing and calm river, yet one that has determined the growth of the city. A network of waterways connects the River Spree with numerous canals and lakes. It is spanned by 1,662 bridges, more than in Venice. Den Deutschen Völker is written above the western portal of the Reichstag. This is where those who have been elected by the people make the country's laws. Today, the Deutsche Bundestag stands for democracy, a modern parliament with an historic ambience, crowned by an architectural masterpiece. Englishman Sir Norman Foster designed this, the capital's new attraction, a glass cupola and spiral ramp. The eastern train station marks the beginning of a trip on the Panorama S-Bahn, whose carriages are equipped with large panoramic windows. Exceptional viewing angles make experiencing the temporarily divided city particularly intense. We cross the Spree and travel towards Sudring. In the historic centre of the city is one of its most beautiful squares that was named after a regiment that was once stationed here, the Gendarmenmarkt. A concert hall and French cathedral form one end of the impressive-looking closed square. In the centre of the square, in front of a large staircase that leads up to the entrance of the concert hall, is a monument that dates back to 1871. It features one of Germany's greatest poets, Friedrich von Schiller. Between 1961 and 1990, during the Cold War, Friedrichstrasse contained what was famously known as Checkpoint Charlie. Directly behind it is the beginning of the Berliner Mauerwerk, a remnant of a sad chapter of the city's history, when both East and West were physically separated. The Kaiser Wilhelm Memorial Church is another reminder of the past. It was built to commemorate the emperor, but during the Second World War was badly damaged due to bombing raids. The largest and most splendid of Berlin's Hohenzollern castles is Charlottenburg Castle, whose wrought iron and shining golden entrance attracts hordes of visitors. In the Ehrenhof, outside the main building, is a bronze monument of the Great Elector. The country's first garden complexes originated in Berlin when the Hohenzollers created wonderful parks for their castles. Under the strong influence of Versailles. In just 5 years, a new city district was built around Potsdamer Square, a modern metropolis designed by famous architects, a masterpiece of stone, steel, and glass. In 1945, this busy square was bombed to ruins, and then it was cut in two by the Berlin Wall. Today, it's an example of imaginative city architecture. We travel to nearby Potsdam, a city of castles and gardens, and with an old town that features a lively market atmosphere. When the monarchy settled here, so did their armies, and with them came craftsmen, merchants, and artists from many countries. The castle, like Nauener Gate, leads to the Russian colony of Alexandrovka and then to Belvedere on Fingist Mountain. The red brick buildings of the Dutch Quarter feature various shops. A French church completes the impressive appearance of this once residential city, with its history of the Hohenzollers and Prussian way of life. Delving a little further back into history, there was the German king Friedrich the Great. In 1745, he began to design Potsdam's Sanssouci Park. His summer residence gradually became an abundant ensemble of castles and gardens. And under Friedrich Wilhelm IV, it was further enlarged. Idyllic paths lead to the Chinese house, an impressive example of the popularity of Chinese architecture in the 18th century. Roman baths originated in the style of an Italian villa, a picturesque complex with a dwelling for a gardener, a tea pavilion, arcades, and numerous baths. The new Palais is located at the park's western entrance. But Friedrich the Great favored one castle more than any other, Sanssouci, a treasure that is one of the most beautiful examples of European Rococo architecture. The king wanted to reside in a peaceful setting and away from court ceremonials and politics without worries. Thus, Sanssouci, a place of calm and tranquility. Hamburg, a lively metropolis in the north of Germany and for many centuries a gateway to the world, a work of art with many different faces. The city is located at the water's edge and the smell of the sea is in the air, even though the North Sea coast is situated some hundreds of kilometers from here. Hamburg's harbour is its lifeline and a popular tourist attraction. The harbour's history began 800 years ago when, in Nikolai Fleet, the first harbour complex for the growing Neustadt was constructed. The harbour is the heart of Hamburg's economy. The Speicherstadt is part of the harbour. It's the largest warehouse complex in the world, crossed by canals that are known as fleets. In 1888, although Hamburg was connected to the German realm, its harbour remained duty-free. Coffee, tea, and spices were stored there. A boat trip on the Fleet is a nostalgic adventure. From here, goods were lifted by windlasses to the upper floors. The tower of St. Michaelis Church is lovingly known as Michel, one of the city's famous landmarks. The church is one of the most beautiful Baroque buildings in the north of Germany, with an interior in white, grey and gold. The Italian-influenced Ulster arcades are situated opposite the town hall market. City Hall highlights the power of the autonomous Hanseatic city of Hamburg. An architectural combination of Renaissance, Baroque and classical design. Trade brought with it prosperity, and affiliation to the German Hanse founded the Hamburgian bourgeoisie. In the 13th century, the Ulster was dammed, thus creating a 180-hectare lake that still exists, the Binnenalster. A canal trip with the small boats of the White Fleet travels across the dammed-up Inner Ulster, beneath Lombard Bridge and across the Outer Ulster. Next, it continues along serene canals, past various buildings and old factories that are no longer in use. On the outskirts is the Ervelgörner Museum, located on the banks of the Elbe. With an icebreaker, floating crane and steam tug. A little further on and we reach the Blankenese, or Light Nose, once a settlement for ship captains on the banks of the Elbe. In 1907, Karl Hagenbeck opened an animal park that was revolutionary for its time, a 25-hectare park for wildlife. Hagenbeck wanted to separate the wildlife from visitors, not by fences, but by invisible ditches beyond which the animals could live in a natural environment. Hamburg doesn't have a zoo, but it has Hagenbeck. St. Petri is the oldest of Hamburg's 5 main Protestant churches. The huge brick building was completely destroyed and later rebuilt according to neo-Gothic designs. Imaginative constructions decorate the Kontorhaus district. The Mollenhof, Chilihaus and Sprinkenhof are the sumptuous districts of many of the city's most successful merchants, a public display of prosperity. The large park complex Planten und Blumen, which means plants and flowers, is another idyllic recreation area within the city. Here, numerous international horticultural exhibitions take place, and it has a magnificent Japanese garden. Everywhere, there's a spa garden atmosphere where visitors can enjoy nature and where formerly was Alfred Brehm's first zoo. Each year on the 7th of May, Harbour Birthday is celebrated. People from all the world gather within the various galleries of the landing stages to celebrate a huge festival along with the people of Hamburg. A great experience. Germany is full of history and cultural heritage. In the last millennium, the German nation, with its many customs and rich history, emerged from a multitude of Germanic tribes. And with its culture and many diverse and beautiful landscapes, Germany is now one of the most popular tourist destinations in Europe.